Today I'm thrilled to welcome Neelam, a social entrepreneur who has spent over 3 decades transforming the lives of rural women across India. An industrial designer from NID, Neelam co founded Industree Foundation, where she's helped women artisans turn traditional skills into thriving, self owned businesses. From bamboo to banana fiber, her work has built sustainable value chains that connect local producers to global markets. Neelam's mission is to create livelihoods with dignity where women lead, communities thrive, and economies regenerate. Neelam, welcome to Her Story Conversation. How are you doing?
Good. It's a great day in Goa today. Yeah.
Lovely. So, how did the idea of industry come about? What were the problem that you thought you wanted to solve?
Yeah. Well, it's a slightly long winded on this one. I had existential angst when I was in NID. In my fourth year, I was like, thick in it. What am I here for? What is life? Etc. 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 And then I was pulled out of that entire kind of a depression by a faculty member who said, Neelam, work with your hands. So she said, go and weave, etc. etc. And in NID, we did a course called Basic Materials where we worked in our hands with all materials, wood, metal, ceramic, 6 months. So that stayed in my head somewhere. And I'd also was questioning a lot around what is work? Because I would find work, studio work at NID, a bit of a drudgery sometimes. So I'd written a paper on work. So when the whole idea of doing my thesis project came up, I chose to go and work in the handmade sector. Industrial design, which is what I did, is not about handmade. Industrial design is about working and building products for industrial production. But I chose handmade because I again was questioning that in our country, where we have so many crafts, why should I not pursue handmade? So spoke to a faculty member. He said, sure, great idea. So then I chose. And I think that journey of going and working in the villages, I chose a craft in Bastar, lost wax metal casting, where I could work with my own hands, the therapeuticness of that whole thing. I was literally there for a couple of years. I would come and go to Delhi and back. It just sold me for life on the world of handmade, right? And this rich world of Indian artisanness, artisanship. And I did a lot of work consulting when I graduated with a lot of state handicraft corporations, with a lot of organizations. And at the end of it all, I said, I met my co-founder, Mrs. Geeta Ram, who was Secretary Crafts Council of India then. And when I finished doing a stonecraft documentation for them, 14 states, 3 years, I said, Geeta, what should I do next? And she said, Neelam, let's do a business. Craft can stand on its own feet. Those were her exact words. And I asked her, I said, should we set up a non-profit? She said, no, it should be a business. And that's why we set up this social business called Industree. So the three initial co-founders was Geeta, Neela, and then, of course, a batchmate of mine called Poonam Kasturi, who has passed away now. But the three of us set up Industree together as a private company. So much later, we set up the company in 1994. I was told I was a social entrepreneur in 2006. So that's how Industree. And the main aim was to build markets for makers in villages. That was its main aim, right?
So today, when entrepreneurs decide to start off, many of them take the funding route. They build a product, and they hit the market, and they ask for funding to kickstart. How did you start your journey?
Yep. So brilliant. So we were designers from NID. And we didn't know a thing about business. And I stammer, you know, and I It's gone down a lot. But I was like, Geeta, I can't stand. And to start a crafts business in those days, 1994, we knew we had to open a shop. And I said, Geeta, I can't stand in the shop and sell. I stammer. She said, Neelam, it'll be okay. Don't worry. She's a little older than us, right? By about close to about 14, 15 years. And so she was our investor. So she is from the Sundaram Finance family. Yeah. So part of that family. And she says, I will invest. So we three of us invested 20,000 rupees each, Poonam, Geeta, and me. And she gave us a loan. She gave us a loan of 10 lakhs in 1994. And the shop, the shop opened in 1996. Yeah, so that's how industry started with debt. She said her husband obviously was her key advisor, lovely human being. And he said, you can't take more equity than them because, I mean, you should all three be equal partners. So give them debt. So we didn't even ask what's the interest, what is what, nothing. Just started. Right. Yeah.
Wow. So I think a significant part of your work is around communities. I mean, apart from building the product and getting it out in the market, selling it, how did you go about building trust within the community?
Yeah. So frankly, there are a bunch of cases on us which have been done over the years, but very tough for people to go back and dig them out and read them. But you see, we did everything. We would we'd write a letter. We got a list of the first craft groups from Geeta. Geeta had a bigger history in Tamil Nadu. And she said, these are all the crafts. And we knew what the crafts were. There are these books where you can see crafts and you can just order, and we'd meet people in exhibitions. But we would write letters, we would make sketches, we would place order 20 pieces for the shop, and we would call up people. We'd phone, then we would travel. So we've done everything right from like scratch. And I would again say it's because of the design education that Poonam and I got. I was full time, Poonam was part time, and but everything was with the because I'd lived with communities, I'd worked with communities, I'd seen the poverty in Bastar. I'd s- I would eat meals with them. I would cycle into a village in Bastar where when I went day one, the handicrafts promotion officer from the Office of Development Commissioner Handicrafts, Ministry of Textiles, whose office I went to, he sent me to work with this very poor villager in remote Chhattisgarh. He said, Neelam, take your rice and dal, submit your ration the beginning of the month with him, pay him at the end of the week the wages because he was helping me make prototypes. So, they would eat rice and dal, nothing else, day after day after day. And I would eat with them because in those days, there's no restaurant in some village or anything. So, having seen all that, having that lived experience, engaging with communities was just about doing things on their terms. There's no question of our term, right? This is our terms. That never ever existed in our vocabulary. You send someone an order, they'll say, Madam, we want advance. You will send advance. So everything that we have ever done with communities comes from them. We are a reaction. We are not going into any community head and body first and saying, hello, this is what you guys need to do. That's not the way we've ever functioned. Yeah.
Understood. I've when I read about industry, I read about the 6C framework. What is the 6C?
So you see, the people who are in the social sector are two, three kinds. One is the activist. Very, I was never an activist. Two is the career social entrepreneur, which is fashionable today. It was not fashionable in our times. Three is a designer turned entrepreneur, which I am. And I just did things step by step. And then many years later, 2011, my husband, who's also a designer from NID, Jacob Matthew, he also gave us the name Industry. There's a name given by him. He had sort of moved out of his design consulting firm. He'd also got into social. He was into social design, yeah, doing design for social change. He came in because we set up a skill development company with National Skill Development Corporation. And this was 2012, 13. And he said, Neelam, I'm trying to look at what the skill development company is going to do and tell me, what have you done all these years? What did you do? And he made the first sketch of the 6C framework. Yeah. So the 6C framework, the articulation of it came from him. So I just sat and I told him, I said, see, we'd make groups. The women were aggregated into groups. We can't work with an individual group. And from 2000, we had set up a non-profit, Industree Foundation. 1994 was the private company. 2000, we set up the foundation because we found that we didn't have enough money in the private company by selling product to invest in production in the villages. So we told Geeta, we said, Geeta, we need some money. We have to set up some production centers in the villages because some of the export orders we are doing, we are sending crap because we are getting crap from the villages because things are not following a certain quality standard. And then we just send it off and then we lose the customer. So she said, Neelam, look, we are not going to make any more money in this business. There's not this, as it is, we are making losses. So why don't we go to the government of India and set up a non-profit and take money from their schemes? So right from 2000, we knew about self-help groups. We knew the government models because we were engaging with the government, though we never got any money from them ever. But we were engaging with their models. So aggregation was key. That if you're going to have to impact more women, so aggregation. So under the first C, which is construct, it's about aggregation. Construct your production enterprise. Construct and all the facilities for production, the common facility center, and then the professional hand holding is in construct. The second C was capacity, training, soft, hard, everything. Third C is create, design. Everything, if you're going to go to a new market, you need a new design. Fourth C was channel, yeah, which is market. Fifth C is capital. They need working capital to go to market. The sixth C was connect. That how are all these other five C's getting connected? You see, it's orchestration. All these five C's are not linear. They're not linear loops. They are little whirlpool, yeah, in the middle. So the 6C framework and our 6Cs connect. Yeah, how is this whole thing being orchestrated? Connect also today we call it as technology because you need some technology frameworks to connect all these other five C's. So that is what is the 6C framework, and it is basically and fundamentally the pivot. These days, our teams have simplified it into simpler terms because we are very agnostic about terms. It's called the demand side, it's called the supply side, and it's called the financial side because all communities and groups need a demand and they are the supply. And then there is the finances. How are these three things happening? And there are two C's that fit into each of these three. So we've now talked about three things.
So speaking about demand, was have you seen a shift in the demand of products that you cater to?
All right. Now the biggest thing on demand is you are in a world trading situation. So where is the bulk consumption? A lot of our learning actually came because my husband was he was the design and branding team for Mr. Kishore Biani for Future Group. So he designed the first Big Bazaar, the first Central, the first Pantaloon store, everything. So he literally lived with that man. Yeah, he's a great friend of ours still. And we understood markets and retail through him. Otherwise, there was no way we as designers with running one shop, going to some export fairs and doing export, we could really get such in-depth understanding. So first thing was his roti kapda makan, food, fashion, home. So that's what we consume, right? Now, where is home coming from in our country? Hard goods. When you talk about handicrafts, hard goods, home, decor, it's all being imported. Everything is coming from China, Indonesia, wherever, wherever. All the traders are going there. They're bringing container loads. Suddenly, overnight, we noticed there were these furniture stores that mushroomed all over the country. It's all imported furniture, right? So, fashion, yes, large extent. Indian has huge skills. Handloom is almost dead, right? Fab India struggled for years saying we want handloom, then the transition to power loom happened. Okay. So we've been watching and seeing, right? And the most important thing about demand is price points. What are you, how what are your prices? Who is the market you're catering to? So we went through this phase of middle market, right? We said we didn't want to become niche. We said craft should not be niche. Why should crafts not be niche? Because we have 200 million artisans. Who wets this 200 million number? It's just a nice term somebody coined, and it's very popular and we all love it, right? But it's true, you see. India has 140 million smallholder farmers. That's a well vetted number. We have the largest number of smallholder farmers in the world. Now, smallholder farming happens one season, no monsoon, maybe another season, no twice. Then, in between, what were the farmers doing for millennia in this country? They were all doing handwork. Their wives, their families, they were making things for the local village, etc., right? There's another very great point. Pre industrial revolution, we were the second largest economy in the world. Why? Because of our handmade. So, markets, we have to create the demand because the people still exist. The people haven't gone anywhere. Yes, there is a huge loss of skills, there is a huge loss of everything, but still, we have the maximum number of people in the world dependent on this sector. And we have the widest set of skills, depth, width, everything, right? And if we guys are not going to create demand for this sector in this day and age and going forward, where everyone is talking about slowing down consumption, I mean, everyone's talking about this great climate thing. Everyone is talking about how China became the factory of the world. Why is there political issues in US and Europe? Because they've killed manufacturing. It all went to China. How is India going to pull its millions out of poverty? So, there's a lot to be said for this sector. So I am one of those people who says demand is there. It's a question of how do you create it? What is the logic you use from every conceivable angle and create the demand? Then there's a way to create demand, and that needs to be addressed. And I think it's getting addressed and it'll keep getting addressed. This is a sector that more and more people are talking about now. It's not just us. And that gives us great happiness.
So there is the social, economic, and environment, like, coming all together. How does the demand generation is from home? Either it is a narrative that is being built, or it is the government that largely subsidizes the whole initiative,
Yeah,
because expecting that every individual will have a shift in their consumption pattern without any sort of impetus is, it's not fair. I mean, it's not real. Not about being
it's not
fair,
real.
right?
Absolutely. Okay. So let's look at it from three lenses. Let's look at it first from the lens of getting to be a little cost competitive, right? Why is every Diwali basket in our country today? It's actually imported from China, by the way.
Yeah.
Simple. It's not that we can't make the baskets, right? So there are big supply chain issues, huge. So that's what industry solved for first, right? So we've built collectives of women. That's why we say we are at the intersection of equity, climate, gender, because the collectives program or the society or producer company or a co-op program is what the government schemes have. Government has lots of money in its schemes, by the way. Yeah, but they are often looking for the right sense of direction, right? But they're very well designed schemes. So we have built India's largest off-farm collectives, which are producer companies owned by the women that make and supply. It was just something we had to do just to make a point. They supply banana bark baskets to IKEA. So we have made a model where 100,000 baskets of same size, same shape, costing right quality can go to a global buyer. It can be done. It took us some 15 years and lots of investment to make it happen, but it's happened. Right? Now, having made that happen, we've also got this huge collective doing sal leaf, biodegradable plates. Right? So there are ways we are showing, right, where 1,000 women, 2,000 women, 10,000 women can start getting into a global supply chain, into a national supply chain, into a regional supply chain. Stop, move them out of doing this local sales, move them to regional, national, global. How much of India's retail is organized? Very little. Right now, the e-commerce sites, now there's a complete change, by the way. E-commerce is really taking over. Small sites doing decor and all that. So, at industry, there is always one vertical that is looking at market. We may be one of the only NGOs in the world which is so market focused. We are now 100% an NGO. The private company is shut down. We've shut it down, right? So everything we do at Industry Foundation, we've got, I would say, the our highest and most senior people, some six, five, six of them are focused on markets, right? So now, you've got to get the costing right, the global supply chain funders right. So all that we've cracked, and people can look to it. Now, the second thing is there are certain crafts which are not suited to scale. They're not suited to scale, because 99% of the artisans in our country are scattered all over the world and they're like in clusters of 10, 15 here and there, right? So, this large collectives model is something that we will do and are doing with NRLM, National Rural Livelihoods Mission, Ministry of Rural Development, right? There's enough money there. And all the monies will go into training of the women collectives. The women collectives are already set up. NRLM and Ministry of Rural Development has the world's largest platform of women in collectives. Some 100 million to 200 million are there. Okay. So that is this work of larger aggregations, value chain, focus value chains. Now, what we've done in banana bark or sal, what's happening in bamboo today, can easily get extrapolated to leather, to ceramic, to terracotta. I mean, people have to just come in, start looking at these models a little more seriously, and they can do it actually if they want. So we've set some examples there, right? Now let's come to the millions of small people, groups, 10. So there we have this network called Creative Dignity. We realized early on that there are just too many crafts, too many skills, too many value chains out there, right? So in COVID, a network called Creative Dignity was set up. We've also been discussing on how organizationally you cannot solve for these problems. Yeah. And by the way, there's no question of subsidy from the government. Government will just put in money to train the women to, you know, but eventually the women have to sell in a competitive manner to private sector in the country. Right. So the subsidy only comes in establishing the supply chain, hand holding the supply chain for 3 to 5 years with government support. Yeah. And we do it also with CSR, etc. So let's put that to the side. Now, but they have to compete. Yeah. They have to compete. They have to be competitive. Now, the others, the smaller groups, Creative Dignity has been working on models. Yeah. It's called the Creative Enterprise Lab. And there we are talking about much niche markets, much smaller markets, and those markets are slowly growing because if you look at the market for luxury, see, it's also a very big, it's who rises to the challenge. What did Italy do with its high skill after World War II or whatever it was, when all these Pradas and Chanels and all came up? So it's a question of dialoguing more with high end designers, customers. So we've got to look at craft at across the middle market, the mass market, then slowly start moving up. Because eventually, the future of crafts is at high end. It
Yeah.
is. Because it's not as though the number of artisans are going to keep increasing. They're going to keep decreasing. It's a reality. Yeah. But we believe that with this NRLM work, where you are talking about craft as a commodity, more or less. I'm a great believer in craft as a commodity, but yeah, I'm a great believer in that. I believe there where it's about manufacturing. That's why I don't call it craft. We call it creative manufacturing. We call it creative production. Basically saying it's semi-industrialized. But it's creating jobs, it's creating work, and it is not competing, meaning like a iPhone factory will be automated, right? But handmade basket, it's a commodity at the end of the day. It's the same basket, same size, same shape, 100,000 pieces. But that's handmade. So part of the production unit is industrial, all the quality checking, all the supervision, all the line, all the lean manufacturing. So we've reinvented the whole concept of handmade for India and the world because globally the need for handmade is not coming down. I mean, look at Etsy. It's at a 4 billion, $5 billion valuation, right?
Right.
So everyone's quite clear that curated goods, stuff that's more niche, there is a need for it globally. So I think one of the biggest things that we at industry have done is we've said stop looking at your very narrow Indian market. Because you're right, India is a new economy, it's a new consumer. The Indian consumer cannot be expected to pay even a little higher premium, right? But the guy buying on Etsy is paying a decent enough price for our guys to sell it there. But you will be surprised to know, by the way, Indian makers on Etsy are just 1%. Etsy failed to bring Indian makers onto Etsy, by the way. So there, I mean, there are huge issues. And all these issues need to be solved by someone. So it's not as a demand is not there. Demand is
So
there.
why would anybody not adopt a marketplace like Etsy? Why would they fail? Is
Yeah. Ask me, yeah, tell me. So, I mean, which is why I'm saying you need a million more social entrepreneurs in our space. So I'm very happy to advise any social entrepreneur wanting to work in our space come. Because I'm telling you, a demand is not the issue. It is not the issue. It's supply chain is the issue. And I'll tell you another thing here. Every young social entrepreneur coming into this sector doesn't want to dirty their hands. Nobody wants to get into production. Nobody is getting into supply chain. Maybe 2% are. I shouldn't say nobody. 5% are. But everybody is looking for a quick fix. So, to ek aur we'll start one more marketplace.
yeah,
One more thing
aggregation.
to hack me.
Everybody wants to aggregate. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to take the headache of creating, doing quality control, all of those challenges.
And then
Uh,
going down and enabling the people to do the quality control. You can't do their quality control. That's not how quality control works. Quality control is enabling them to do it properly. Just educating them a bit. They'll do it. So that's hard work, right? Because there are just too many crafts. They're scattered all over. You know, we've got huge export hubs in this country, handmade export hubs, Saharanpur, Moradabad. UP is like just wading in it. Rajasthan. We do. I don't know how many, 12,000 crores, 20,000 crores of exports every year. But we are still, compared to the number of artisans, we have some 2% market share. Yeah. We still have only 2% market share. Why? Any exporter you go to, anywhere in this, and they're all in the North Indian belt, they're not in the South Indian belt because the traders and the savvy guys are up there. Okay. They're all traders, right? What is it? Labor nahi hai. Obviously, labor nahi hai because you're looking only at your Moradabad guys, you're looking only at your Saharanpur guys. Now you got to go out. No, you got to spread out to the villages. They cannot spread out to the villages. They try because it's expensive.
the
So that's
economics.
where the merging of private sector and government schemes. How? Is that happening better? I've been a private business owner, so I know, no. When you're running your private business, you don't have that much of spare cash to going to run from village to village and all of that. And forget the cash. I don't think the cash bothers them. They can't hire the people to do it. Who are the
Yeah.
people who are people? So there's a bunch of issues out here.
And when you say, of course, handmade has a premium, but premium brand calls for the premium usually.
Yes.
S- So,
Handmade doesn't have any premium.
yeah,
It maximum, we've spoken to Primark, spoken to Gap, spoken to all the globe. Handmade doesn't have more than a 10% premium. It can get a 10% premium. But handmade has a premium as in the brand, whether it's a Prada or whether it's a whatever. And by the way, a lot of their brands and a lot of their embroidery is coming from some slum in Bombay, a slightly glorified slum, a nice place in Bombay, but in a slum. So, yeah. So, why are we not investing in that?
interesting. Okay. So you spoke about sal, you spoke about bamboo. Why are these socially and environmentally relevant? Why these two products?
So, I've also become very philosophical as I have aged. So, in life, what you do is you follow a path. So, when we started in multiple crafts, then because we were traders, right? We were not manufacturers. We don't own the factory. We moved to crafts. So, we knew we didn't have that price competitiveness. So, we moved to a craft which was not sold by anyone else in India. And these were natural fibers. So we worked in grass, worked in screw pine from Kerala, we worked in palm leaf, and we built a niche for industry in natural fibers, right? And we carried that legacy on. The holy grail was IKEA. We got IKEA. When IKEA came in, they said, okay, we can't take all your dyed product. They've all dyed. They said, we will only take natural because IKEA compliances on dyeing are stringent, right? So they said, okay, we'll take natural, then banana. So we scaled banana just to prove a point. We proved the point. Then we took sal. Again, sal was an opportunity that came to us from Odisha. But it's an endless opportunity, sal, because the market for biodegradable plate is endless. It's global. It's a throwaway item. You can keep making it. Women, our tribal women, are going into the forest. They're collecting the leaves, and it's a wonderful value chain. Yeah. So phenomenal. Women who are earning like 2 to 5,000 rupees a year are today earning 20, 30,000 rupees a year. Now we are strengthening the model so that they can earn 100,000 rupees a year because when they go to the forest, they can also collect tamarind. They can. So, every value chain has worked and grown for a reason. Nothing have we done because we got a brilliant idea, right? So now we've cracked, and it's called non-timber forest produce, SAL, NTFP. So NTFP for tribal India is huge, and it's inclusive because for us, we've only been driven by two things. One is first mile. We don't call it last mile. That the first mile person must be impacted. Yeah, and luckily, all these natural fiber value chains are very first mile because you see the raw material also they collect. Banana bark, finally, when you want to be competitive in banana bark with the exporter from Indonesia or Vietnam, we found the cost of the bark is too expensive in India because cost of stripping the banana, it's a waste. But cost of stripping the banana, drying the bark, and therefore we know that Vietnam and Indonesia are not really calculating the wage of the raw material. They're not calculating the wage. Yeah. Women are just supplying the r- raw material free. But in India, that's not happening. So we are finding it very difficult to become globally competitive in banana bark, bamboo. So when bamboo happened, bamboo came to us through USAID. And they said, look, you're doing such great work in natural fibers. And you know what's so great about natural fibers is the climate. Yeah. It's very good for the planet. Yeah, because these are circular economy products. These are products that are just good for the environment, right? Or they are sequestering carbon. So all this has just happened, I would say, organically. And we've stuck with natural fibers and we've built our showcase models on natural fibers. But that doesn't mean that none of these models can go into other value chains. All right. Now, bamboo is I would say, the gold mine, because bamboo's global market is phenomenal. Bamboo goes into lumber, engineered wood, bamboo boards, bamboo flooring, right? So now, when we have started on this bamboo plantation for 1 million women with NRLM, National Rural Livelihoods Mission has subsectors. It creates a subsector when it'll impact 1 million women. So it's got a couple of subsectors. It's got honey, it's got now bamboo. We are the technical advisors for that. So 1 million women will plant bamboo over the next 5 to 6 years. Already about this monsoon, 40,000 women would complete. Next monsoon, 200,000, so on and so forth. And it's an indigenous bamboo. It's a 16 species are being planted. We are not monospecies. We've been doing this for 5 years. And the collectives of the women will not just plant the bamboo, harvest the bamboo, they will also pre process the bamboo. So, pre processing plants are being set up, they're being tried out. So that when they sell the bamboo, they sell it highest value addition from their side. So, they've earned the maximum at root level, at village level, maximum values accrued to them. Then they will send out. If it's just slivers, it go for agarbatti. Agarbatti guy can come and collect it from their doorstep. Or if it's for lumber, it's again some strips. Then if it's for, then all the waste will go into pulp for paper. So we've spoken to the largest industries in the country and we'll pick up. But we are doing what is called rural industrialization, rural revitalization, using bamboo as an example. So that's what it is. It will go into briquettes. It will go into the steel industry. And all these guys need this stuff to hit their net zero targets. So that way, bamboo is a gold mine. But again, what we are saying is what is happening in bamboo is in future going to need to happen in a lot of other value chains. It's going to need
And
to happen.
so, talking about bamboo, like which parts of the country offers a favorable climate for bamboo?
So India has got X number of agroclimatic zones. I was told there were 7, but then there could be more. Because you see, a lot of the stuff I'm telling you is what I hear from my teams. Because ever since bamboo has been scaling, I have retired. So I don't even interfere with my organization at all. So assume there are 7 or more agroclimatic zones, right? So there are species indigenous to our country for every agroclimatic zone, right? So if you will take UP, you will take whatever MP, you will take whatever where that Phulan Devi was, whatever that part is called, Bundelkhand or whatever. Every area will have, because they all had indigenous bamboo. Remember the days of the Raj when we had millions of tigers? They were all crawling through those thickets of grass. They were all bamboo. There was bamboo everywhere in our country. Okay, and they were indigenous species. So all that research, and we've got great deal of knowledge sitting in our agricultural universities and all. So really, endemic species are being designed, thought for, and in the 14 states, that's how the scale up will happen. And scale up will happen through state rural livelihood missions, SRLMs. So the SRLM manpower. So as an organization, industry is very clear that we don't have to become a 3,000 person organization to work in 14 states. We have to share whatever we know with SRLMs. We need to have maybe 5 to 8 people in every state who handholds the SRLM machinery. It's got a huge machinery to, and if it doesn't, then it'll have to build up. Yeah. So we are enabling even the government to do a better job of their own programs. So that's the model.
Great. For somebody who is listening in today, what are the things you wish you knew when you started?
Yeah, well, I wish I knew what was capital. I didn't know as a designer. I was clueless. Yeah. And I wish I knew how to, I mean, but it was a thing of the times that my sons are 34 and 32 today. So started 30 years ago, no? 94, right? So they were 2, and so this whole balance of work life, personal life. So I actually ran my first 10 years of my life like a crusade of my work life, right? So then I caused myself a lot of unnecessary stress. So I wish I knew that one doesn't need to do that. I don't know how one knows how to do that. But this is I advise a lot of my younger women in my teens these days, that come what may, you're going to work and you're going to have to handle your family life. So you might as well do it in a more relaxed frame of mind, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. What are the, you work with a lot of social entrepreneurs, you interact with a lot of them. What is the most common mistake that you see that they make, and, how can they avoid them?
I social entrepreneurs, like I earlier also shared, we are of two, three kinds, right? One is an activist, and activism doesn't really help because you've got to just approach this as rationally and as logically as you can. So having a little less emotion is a little better. But the passion, I think I have been able to do what I did and reached where I have and even let go so comfortably because of the passion, right? Because in many ways you've drained yourself completely. You haven't left anything. So you are fine. You can just let go. So there is a call for passion, but yeah, being a little calmer and cooler about it. Number one. Number two, I would advise them to network heavily. I think that's something I didn't do in my earlier years because I was so much on a crusade and so much of I know everything and no one really knows what needs to be done for this sector that I unnecessarily isolated myself for many years because I think you get a lot of energy from your peers, actually, if you look at it. So it that's a great advice I have for everyone. And I think people are far more collaborative these days, actually. It's a new generation which has been trained differently, educated differently. I would say it is slightly less competitive. I could be right, I could be wrong. But so these, I think, are a couple of things that, yeah, my advice.
Yeah. So I also wanted to go a bit deeper about this term networking, right? When you think of networking, you think of being in a room with a lot of people and interacting with them. Many people want to do it, but they're unable to do it. So, what is the most pragmatic way of reaching that networking space and be able to have those conversations?
So for social entrepreneurs, I think now there are a bunch of programs. So affiliate yourself with any program because it's only when I affiliated myself with a someone invited me for something in Geneva for 2 weeks. And my first answer was historically, I don't have time, I can't do this. I've got children, I've got five, I've got work, I cannot go and do this. But I was at my wit's end, so I went. And that changed my life. It really changed my life. And then I started, and then I joined a course. Yeah, over a year or whatever. So I'm just saying that look around, find an incubator, find an accelerator for social enterprises, find anything. Yeah, hunt, you will find. There are a lot of free programs. There's any way, but attend a program. Don't network. I mean, there's otherwise it's a very tough to network. The best way to network is through some program.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
We spoke about quality, where you said that you need to empower the community to do the QC themselves. You are looking at scaling to 15 states. How are you looking at quality control and community ownership at scale? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So, I mean, for 25 years, what we've done, we've understood that nothing is happening magically. Everything is input and then output. So, input is key. So, the capacity building programs that we develop, then the people who run capacity building program, right? And therefore, it's all tiered, right? So, it's not just train someone and let them go, then train them. I mean, obviously at NSDC and all, there are other terms on the job training, it's called. We don't call it on the job training, right? But gradually over the next year or two, we will take on some of this government parlance because we really believe that some of these models now need to get pushed into Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship for final skill. Because the minute you have other people running these programs and then it's like beauty, it's like health and wellness, it's like nursing, Finally, even for livelihoods, frankly, unless you will build these programs systematically, properly, unless someone will come, an external agency, and vet them, that they are being run properly, true to the spirit. So it's frankly, it's the quality of input. And you got to do this very scientifically. Yeah. I mean, all of us complain about the quality of engineers we push out, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at our doctors, tell me, I think our doctors are great actually. I mean, Goa, everybody said healthcare and all. I mean, I went to a small hospital here. I was so impressed by the quality of doctors. So we've done a good job, right? By and large on our medicine. We can do it for everything. That's my thing on quality. Who are the people teaching the people teaching the people? That's it.
Absolutely. Speaking of education, you graduated from NID. How has NID shaped the way you think today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a product of design education. As since you know, I didn't know what the word capital even meant when I started. Yeah, so in NID, the our education system was built on unlearning. It was built on how design was a new profession because it came at the end of the artisanal age, arts and craft age, into the industrial age. So after World War One, when the factories in Germany no longer had to build arms and armaments, somebody said, give them some work, let them make other products. So that's when industrial design was built by a bunch of architects, artists, theater people. And our course was built on starting from a dot. That you, a dot, a bunch of dots makes a line. A bunch of lines makes a drawing. And then that makes a design. That's the kind of design education we got. So we have the ability, or we were taught, to break down things to the, which is why industry has spent and slogged. And actually, we've spent a lot of money, let me tell you. And the money came from venture funding when we were a for profit. The company is dead today, it's of no value today. But I've raised about $5 million in venture funding. It's gone. But we learned. And everything we implement, everything we learned. So I took debt from NSDC, 8 crores to build the model. That debt is almost paid, but I took debt at 6% to build the model. Now today we are able to raise CSR. It's taken us 5 to 6 years to be able to raise CSR, right? So just saying that we it's the design education which taught us how do you problem solve and how do you get and solve for the real problem. And to me, the real problem is the life of the producer. The life of the producer needs to be better. That's it. You keep that end goal and you will solve for it. That's it. So even my CEO today, I'm not taking any shortcuts. I will only do because he had to do Creative Million, right? He had to impact 1 million women. And you can do direct impact, then you can do indirect impact and get 1 million numbers. I'm not taking any shortcuts. I'll have 1 million women plant bamboo and they will all earn a couple of lakhs a year through sale of bamboo. Let me crack this. So he'll crack that. So we solve for the true problem, and in the process, we'll solve for the greater problem. But our real problem is just this: the life of the maker. That's the problem. Yeah.
So now I can see the beautiful backdrop, and you are in Goa. You've mentioned that. How has a team at industry and the women producers grown with you through the years?
So somewhere people have asked me, what's good leadership? So I have the word transparency. So I have always run a very transparent organization. I've gone through terrible times. I'm paid salary 2 months late. As you know, I'm not. I don't know what capital is, and I'm not great at cash flow, though I've run a business, profitable business, mildly profitable. But leadership and the next rung of leaders, they always tell me that what they've learned from me again is transparency, right? And therefore, put it all out there in front of everyone, build the next level, build the next level, build the next level. So if I built the next level is very hard building the next level. And that next level is constantly told, please build your next level. So that's the only way to do it. It's like input gives you output, right? And talk to people. So I have never held, I can't sit in a meeting for more than half an hour. I've never ever sat in a meeting for more than half an hour. I just get up. But I sit and talk to, I would talk to people like for an hour. You know, all my leaders, all my senior people, just sit, talk, share if I've traveled abroad, share my experiences, share everything, share what's happening in the world. So that's how it gets passed on, even going forward with the community leaders. So, how are
So
we
how
engaging with the women in the community? That's the way to engage even with the women in the community.
and how are you seeing the industry leadership now spearheading the foundation? How are you seeing them work?
Well, I would say that the best thing I did was I started retiring at the age of 58. I took 3 years in the process. The team said, give us time, have a process. They only told me, have a process, you can't just retire. Then we got in an HR firm and we had intensive coaching, intensive mentorship for the leaders and even for the next rung. And frankly, it's just that whatever methods you've set in, right? So our existing leaders, they were sent on leadership programs 5, 6, 7 years ago. I would ensure they went, right? So all that's just being carried on, right? And even markets. So my CEO calls me up and tells me, he said, ma'am, this is something you said 8, 10 years ago. We are just meaning he's not ensuring it's happening. It's just that when you are solving for a problem at the root, then in many ways your solution is the truth. It's not your brain that's come up. It's not your ego that's come up with the solution. So the solution is real, right? So they know. And so all I can say is that if you've solved for the problem and you're solving for the problem really, then it's the continuity is great. There's no false. And we always do twists and turns. We've never gone like this. We always go like this, correct, go like this, correct, go like this, correct, because there's no this. So that method is still happening. So everything's still going on. Yes, there is a difference in style. 100%. There is a difference in style. But that's natural and that's thankful because I think people also get tired of the same style. So change in style. It's good. And I think everyone's happy. Yeah. Yeah.
This conversation has been fabulous. I just wanted to get that one story that has stuck with you when you think of women and the communities that you've worked with.
Yeah. So other than that, take the rice and the dal story, which really showed me how poor they were because they could not feed me rice and dal with their lunch unless I put my ration in. The women, everybody, that there are two or three things in our sector. One is that everybody thinks that craft is predominantly about culture. It's not. It's about livelihood. It's about income. Once you know that, you will solve for the right thing. That's the second thing. The third thing is that women, if they earn, their voice in the family is much richer. Yeah, sometimes there is pushback. If it's a problematic family, husband doesn't like the newfound confidence the wife has got, and there's reaction. So let's put that to the side. There are ways to deal with that. But by and large, empowerment of a woman is very linked to her income also, that she's bringing some income in. And it also gives her a lot of confidence because then she's able to have some money in her hands and in her control, right? Now, the most interesting story I heard from a woman was like, how do I plan my day? So she says, look, she was one of the most efficient basket weavers we had because frankly, when we when they're weaving a basket, they have to earn above minimum wage. But at the same time, they have to be competitive because there's a certain price at which this basket will be bought from Vietnam and China. And buyers are always looking at that, right? So now how is that she is making the basket the best and the fastest? Because we asked them, look, you are making one basket a day, but that other woman's making half a basket a day. So then we take a video of her and then we show it to the other women so that they can understand what is she doing. See, for me, it's a clear logic. It's the same two set of hands. The hand is not really very different. Okay, somebody will have slightly better motor skills. That's how the women learn. And they improve their productivity and all that, right? So this woman tells me, see, I work 2 hours in the morning. I get up early. I'll finish. I'll cook all the food and all, and I'll do a little bit of work. Then I'll get my kids ready for school, send them off to school. I'll feed everyone. Da, da, da. Then 2 hours I'll work. Then in the afternoon, everybody has lunch, and then 2 hours I'll work. Then in the night, I'll watch TV. 2 hours I'll work. She'll do her 8 hour work. So the way they plan, the way they do everything, we don't have childcare. So I believe that the flexibility that our women have, if you've got models that respond to that, yeah, till she gets childcare, till she gets elder care, all that when it'll come. But the Western models that are imposed on us, yeah, this ILO is making certain rules, 8 hours of work, forced labor. I just believe that countries like ours, how we define informal work and formal work, I think that's a very big next step for us as a nation. That our women are going to work 8 hours as and when they please. Some app should be monitoring it. I don't know how. But this is the 8 hour day she puts in. Her attendance is clocked in. She doesn't have to go to a center and work and clock in. The government is extremely open. They're willing to listen. We have to go to them now with the case. Is that a farmer is not going to clock in for a 30-day training program? But so, and they've said we are flexible. Come talk to us. So things like that. How are we defining learning on the field? Yeah. How are we giving them certification? How are we giving this woman who's the most efficient basket maker a certification? She's a production person. She's not a factory labor who's getting certification. Things like this is where I believe if we crack some of those models going forward, you will see a new India.
Thank you so much, Neelam. But the conversation isn't over without a quick rapid fire.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so here you go. The one book you think every entrepreneur should read.
Verghese Kurian, I too had a dream. How he set up Amul. Yeah.
Fantastic. Biggest myth about working with artisans.
Yeah, that it's about culture. No, it's about livelihood. It's about
About money.
income. Yeah.
First thing you do when you start your day.
Sorry?
First
First thing,
thing you do when you start
when
your
you
day.
start the day. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. I try to start with yoga. Seriously. Yeah.
Your favorite place in rural India that inspires you.
Yeah. So Veervanallur, Tirunelveli, idyllic, green, lush, mountain, river. That's the first cluster, the grass mat cluster, Patamadai, Veervanallur, that we started working. Yeah.
Nice. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Best advice you have ever received.
Oh, well, it wasn't advice, but it was role modeling. So my dad worked in Indian Oil and he retired at 58. He was very miserable that he was retired at 58. But I was very clear I will retire at 58. So I started ringing the bell when I was 58. So I retired when I was 61. Yeah.
Your hope for the world in one sentence.
Well, I'm a student of Advait. So it's all a mirage in any case. It's all an illusion. It's all Maya. But the good, whatever your definition of good is, will prevail. I believe that.
Superb. Thank you so much, Neelam, for this wonderful conversation. Really loved it.
Thank you, Santosh. Pleasure to be here.